So a couple of weeks ago, I was up at the International Fly Tying Symposium in New Jersey. It was a great event. I got to meet a couple of my heroes, Barry Ord-Clark and Mike Valla, and a couple of folks who recognized me from the channel. So Bert and Gary, always a pleasure talking to y'all. But I had a great chat with a couple of other tyers you might have heard of, Bart Lombardo and Lou Di Gena from Panfish on the Fly. Now after last year's symposium, we tied Bart Lombardo's triangle bug for the channel, but this year I talked Lou into showing me one of his new patterns. And this one, it's a really cool bug, and it's pretty much based on Jack Gartside's Gurgler, but with one major difference. He ties it with a weighted lip up front that's angled down, so when you're stripping it along the surface of the water, it's actually going to dive. Now this last step does make it a little bit harder to tie than a regular Gurgler, but if you can pull it off and you get this diving action, well, you've got a totally different fly. And another cool thing about this pattern, the color combinations are pretty much endless. The one Lou showed me, he tied it in a chartreuse, but the one I'm going to tie for you today, I'm going bold in some bass colors with a good old red and white. Now I did ask Lou what he called this pattern. He said it doesn't have a name, so I asked him if we could do a Name the Fly contest for the channel, and he was all for it. So let's do that today. And how this works is just watch the video and leave a comment with what you think we should call this thing. Now, don't say a diving gurgler. I mean, I know that's pretty much what it is, but let's come up with a cool name for this one. In a couple of days, I'll pick the top 5 and we'll put it up there for a vote. And just to make things more interesting, I'll send the winner one of these hats, Savage Flies hat, your choice, and a $25 gift card to Jay Stockard. So that's it. I can't wait to hear what y'all come up with. So there's one in the vise, the as yet to be named diving gurgler. Now, if I didn't say that in the intro, I meant to. This one was tied by Lou, so this is not one of my flies. It's kind of pretty here. I doubt the one you're about to see will be as pretty, but we'll give it a shot. Now, he did recommend an Ahrex SA210, which the closest thing I had to that big saltwater hook in a size 4 was this Mustad C71, which is fairly similar. I think it's going to work just fine. And I am stepping up my thread. This is a 210 denier, and I'm going to use white. So go ahead and lay a base down to the start of the bend. And I'm going to use a multicolored tail like Lou did. It's going to be white over red. So red Marabou, about a body length right here. So a medium-sized tuft of it, I think, is going to work. So let's catch this in, just a couple wraps, keep it on top. Okay, I think that's fine right there. We'll snip this off and then catch in some white. And I'm trying to keep about the same amount. This one might be just a little bit more, but I think we're going to be fine. So let's go with it. Instead of pulling a few of those out, let's just make it a big, bushy, beefy tail. So enough wraps right there to get that one locked in. Now park your thread up front. Let's get some 2mm white foam, and the thick side is about, in the neighborhood of a hook gap. Then it's about 3 hook lengths long, and then I've made it thin right here. So what we're going to do here, just catch the thin side in and wrap it tight around the hook, just kind of like we were doing a hopper body. I don't think this part is going to give it any flotation, and that's fine, but it will thicken up the body just a little bit. So let's go ahead and bind this in and park our thread at the back again. And depending on what color you're going with, since I'm going with a red and white color scheme here, I'm going to put some red strung saddle hackle. I'm going to palmer this up for the body. We are going to put some ice dub down, but let's get this hackle tied in first. And I'm catching it in from the thin side. You don't necessarily have to do that, but if you do, be careful because the stem is pretty thin back here, and if you're not careful, you'll pull it out or break it when you're wrapping it up. But before we wrap it up, let's put some ice dub on it. So a little bit of wax right here. And I want to go with the white ice dub, and not a lot. It's really just going to give it a little bit of flash underneath. I might need about 4 or 5 inches of a noodle to get me all the way up front, but I'm not putting it on thick. That feather just keeps falling all over the place, but we'll be fine. We're going to wrap them in just a second. And you can see what I'm doing here. I'm not really even putting these all that close together. I'm just gonna get a little bit of flash on this body right there. And actually, I think that's about enough. Now let's palmer this guy up. And I wouldn't worry the least bit if this is pretty or not, because we're gonna push all these down and to the side in one of the next steps here. Okay, now I'm going to catch it off up here, but I have to be kind of careful because the stem has gotten pretty thick about right now. So it's going to take a few extra wraps to really lock this in. And before we wrap that, pull that foam over, we're going to push all these down. A couple extra wraps right here just for fun. Okay, let's leave our thread right there. Now pull these down. And this is why I'm going with the non-adhesive back. When I had the adhesive back and I pulled it off, these barbs were just sticking all over the place on this thing. So what you want to do here, don't pull it really tight. You don't want a flat body. We want to kind of make a little hump like that. But we need to take our bodkin and try to envision right there where that hook eye is going to poke through, and now we can just poke that through, give it a little wiggle, try to widen up that hole just a little bit, and okay, pull all these down. Now just try to work this right up through there without breaking your foam. And if you did it right, you're going to have a little bit of a hump here. So we got a little bit of a hump, and then we're going to want the lip kind of pointing down. So what I've been doing here, let's pull this thread down a little bit. Depending on how much of a lip you want, fold it over and try to just judge it. So I think maybe right there. So I'm gonna pinch that kind of tight just to get me a little bit of a bind. And then, see, now I've got that little crease right there, and I can kind of envision it. And this is what Lou does. He takes a little piece of, maybe 0.25 weight. And if you have adhesive foam, you can just touch it to it and it's going to stick. But if you don't have adhesive, then you're going to need some kind of super glue or Zap-A-Gap or just some kind of adhesive to put a little drop right in there. So I've got a little bit right there. Now this is kind of, I don't know what this is, E6000. It's pretty durable glue when it dries. So I'm just going to put that in there. Now you see I've got my foam in there, or not my foam, my weight, and I'm going to fold this back over right there, and then I'll squish it, and then in a minute or two that foam will be stuck together. But also what I'm going to try to do here, and this is where Lou's kind of a genius. I don't know how he pulls this off every time. We're going to put some wraps right around both these pieces of foam. Kind of want it right up there behind the eye, actually. And this is why we're going with a thicker thread. You don't really want to cut this foam. Now, I think one of the things Lou showed me was he would bend this down and put a few wraps just around the hook. Might help keep that foam, pointing down a little bit. Okay, so we've got it pointing down, kind of what we want, but we got this big, long, extra piece of foam right here we're going to need to trim. So just get in here and cut this, I guess, as close as you can get it without whacking off any of these red fibers right there. So we do have that little tag, but we can just kind of bury that right here. Okay, I think we're pretty secure right there. And I'm just going to whip finish it right here where my thread is. And see if we have any cleanup. I think I could probably clean it up just a little bit. And like I predicted, this is not quite as pretty as Lou's was, but I think you got the the techniques. You'll see the general tying instructions on how to tie one of these, and maybe with tie half a dozen of them or so, you'll probably get the hang of it and have some pretty looking patterns. So that's it, my friends. Make sure you leave a comment with what you think we should call this thing. Now, I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.